So, John Fasano made 3 movies about heavy metal horror.
Yes.
And was he actually like just a big fan of like listening to metal
Ace
music?
is trying to go through the poser files. And he's just like, I love John. Please.
To make those 3 movies like that, you have to at least be a fan.
If you had met John prior to making those movies, you would never have believed for a million years that he would be a heavy metal guy.
No shit.
But he was kind of a closet heavy metal guy. Like, he was the one who was just like, we should put Motorhead, in Zombie Nightmare, or
yeah, because they always pick good music for all.
Or
of
Lizzie Borden
right.
in Black Roses or whatever. I didn't know any of the stuff. Yeah, I mean, I went to some heavy metal concerts, but that wasn't my jam. I was like Billy Joel and Elton John and Linda Ronstadt, So
we're going to edit all of this out.
No, sorry, but
no, it's great.
But it's true. But John, like, so against type for him, really, I guess, really liked heavy metal, and so that's why. I think probably the association with John Michael Thor was part of it also. But I think that John realized that, especially because we were in the Satanic Panic time of era.
Oh, the
right?
timing couldn't have been perfect for these movies.
I mean, Black Roses essentially is just, a fuck you to
PMRC.
But I think that John just, like, so against type, really did like it, because otherwise, it would have been very easy to use something else. I had an idea for a sequel to Black Roses where Damien comes back, but he's now like a Christian rock band instead of heavy metal, and except that, of course, it eventually goes back into metal.
He's trying,
just make it.
Yeah.
He just opens for Creed.
Yeah. Now he's Blackie Lawless.
Yeah.
I am actually talking with Karen Jeffrey, who was Karen Plandon. And we have some really cool ideas about what would make a great Black Roses sequel. I don't know if we'll actually ever do it, but I do love the ideas of it. Yeah.
Please do. I mean, The Mutilator just had a sequel come out. So,
It's true.
Anything's possible.
But I mean, also he has Carmine Appice in the film. I mean, he understood the genre, and he knew it worked, and whatever. He could have got any kind of music to put in his movies.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He chose good stuff.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, really good stuff.
Well, Black Roses was the movie that I didn't realize that Frank was in until we rewatched it for an episode, and I was like, "Holy shit, that's Frank from Wonderfest. He did Hercules." Yep. And I remember because when I saw you that year, I was like, "Hey man, I didn't realize you were in this movie Black Roses," and you had this look on your face like, "Oh yeah, I was in that."
Well, and to be fair, when I first met you at conventions, and I was walking up to the table, I only knew Rock and Roll Nightmare, because the other films hadn't gotten like as much. I don't remember every single person in these movies, and at the time I didn't have them on Blu-ray or DVD.
Yeah.
I have the VHS that's sitting right there on the table.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, I'm looking at grainy things, and I don't know everything like I do about those films that I do now. But exactly, I would walk up and you would have these amazing art books. And that's what I was looking at. You're sitting next to freaking Stout. You're sitting next to
Will Stout.
You're sitting next to William Stout. You're sitting all these, and I'm like, look at this hammer artwork. It's great. And that's how I originally met you.
Yeah.
And then you were doing I think you were doing art pieces for Wonderfest, like flyers or something. Maybe you'd done stuff
T-shirts and stuff like
that's
that.
That's how I remember you. So yeah, absolutely. I feel the same way. Because then it might have been Mystery Science Theater's version of Zombie Nightmare, and I was like, what the fuck?
We did show it at Wonderfest actually one year, like late night, because little kids, and so forth. But Wonderfest has been so terrific to me, in every level. Like I said, my whole fan base started there, and this is how I end up meeting you guys and so many other people that have become family to me, like, more than my own family, honestly. Yeah.
Hope your daughters don't hear this.
No, I don't mean them. I'm
I know.
Well, for
talking
those
about
that
the
don't
other
know,
ones.
Wonderfest.
They're already pissed at me because I wrote a movie called I Hate Kids. So
Well, for those that don't know, Wonderfest is it's a horror sci-fi modeling convention here in Louisville, Kentucky, and it's the largest in the world. People fly from all over the world for this, and I mean like models, like Aurora models, garage kits, things like that. And that's how I remember going in and being like, "This is my tribe." Because conventions in Louisville, Kentucky, they didn't exist. Mm-hmm. I had to travel, and I'm not going to travel. I'm 12.
Yeah.
Or 18.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, I know. I mean, and I'm so blessed that they brought me in because it definitely was the base of my fan base that has grown out, from there. I for a lot of years I didn't do a lot of conventions. I would just do Wonderfest or do like Monsterpalooza, because Monsterpalooza is like practically in my backyard, so it's really easy, But I just now landed a new booking agent, so I'm probably going to be doing a lot more conventions in 2024.
Yeah, I saw you've been busy. You were at a convention in New York. Was it in October?
Was that Monster Bash?
No. I was at Monsterpalooza first. Then I went to St. George, Utah for Horror Fest International Film Festival, and then I was supposed to do one in Mesa, Arizona. And the guy canceled it like 4 days before, and then ran off with everybody's money.
Wow.
It was like a complete con. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So
I'm laughing, but fuck that guy.
No, he's done. Believe me.
Oh my god.
Apparently, the Arizona Attorney General is now like looking for him. So he's in trouble.
But you've worked with so many great people: Julie Adams. Oh my god.
Lou Ferrigno's wife.
Thank you. I can't think of it. Sorry.
Boy, there's a story about that. I don't even know if I should tell.
Hong.
Carla was such a sweetheart. Lou's wife was a doll. I mean, I really loved her. James Hong. I got to do a knife fight with James Hong.
Yeah, that's
how
amazing.
cool is that?
Yeah, James Hong is from Big Trouble in Little China, if you don't know. And Blade Runner. I only do eyes.
Yep. Yeah, it was so funny because we're making that movie, The Jitters, which is like kind of the one that nobody really talks about because it's so hard. Fred Olin Ray put it out on his his label, but the copy of it is really bad. It's really dark. It doesn't look good. And Fred, do you have the masters by any chance, buddy?
Fred Olin Ray? Come on now.
Yeah. I love Fred. He's cool.
Yeah.
So James Hong said to me when we were on set, right, that I always had a camera with me. I had a Canon camera, and I was always taking pictures. And he was like, "Oh, Frank, it's very good that you're taking pictures because you'll be able to look back like years from now. You'll be able to remember everything that happened, right?
That's how pictures work,
right?" And I was just like, "Oh, cool!" Like the guy who's been in more movies than anyone else in the world just told me to like keep taking pictures, right? And we had this great this knife fight scene between me and him, and it was really fun. And he was a very funny guy. He was really like it's a lot of energy. I gotta say. So then years later, there's an autograph show in Pasadena, which is like close to where I live in Burbank, and I saw that he was going to be a guest there, right? And I had a photo of me and him that we took on the set, right? So I brought the photo to him at the convention. I was like, "Hey, Jimmy, hey, it's Frank Dietz. I don't know if you remember, like we were in the Jitters together." And he at first he was like, "Oh, that's a terrible movie." Right? And I'm like, "Okay, well, yeah, but remember you like you told me like I had a camera and you told me that like I should just take pictures all the time and like so I could remember things, right, and everything like that." And I handed him the picture of me and him, which is one of these like arm around the shoulder like close ups, and he looks at it and he just goes, "I don't remember you at all."
You gotta appreciate the honesty. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
but it's actually funny. Since then, Jimmy and I have actually like hosted like costume contests at Monsterpalooza or whatever.
That's
and,
awesome.
And he's cool. And
He's just frantically
he's just
trying
like-
to remember you, like while
Yeah,
you're
I
talking
know,
to him.
it's like
but now, I
Panic
mean,
sets in.
you were
look at
Mr.
this.
Vampire in this movie we did together.
Yeah. But and now he was in Everything Everywhere All at Once, and
Yeah.
like what a great way to I mean, I hope it's not wrapping up his career, but he's literally been in more movies than anybody else.
He
in
has been
history.
doing movies. Oh my gosh, since like. I can't remember when I first discovered him. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know like Big Trouble in Little China. I wasn't thinking of like those kind of stars. So when the '90s hit, I was like, oh, that's the guy from Blade Runner. That's the guy. My nerd brain just switched on.
Oh man, I go back to
all that stuff.
he was in the Sand Pebbles, Robert Wise movie. That is like one of my favorite movies, and like
That's the only Robert
holy
Wise movie
cow.
I've never heard of.
well, that's
West Side Story,
Well, no, that's so
Haunting.
funny because that is so funny because I went to Kevin McCarthy from like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the original, was a really very close friend of mine, and I went to a birthday party at his house once when he was like 92 or something, right? Robert Wise was there, and like he was in a wheelchair, right? But everybody kept like coming up to him and wanting to talk to him because he's Robert Wise. But the crazy thing is like everybody had a different movie to talk about. Like it's like this person's talking about West Side Story. This person's talking about The Sound of Music. This person's talking about The Haunting. This person is talking about Star Trek.
Yeah.
I talked to him about The Sand Pebbles, a movie I just absolutely adore. It's probably Steve McQueen's best role ever in a movie.
Yeah.
And it's got Richard Crenna, who was my favorite actor also. And he was lovely. He would just sit there and talk about, about making those movies and how he liked working with Richard Crenna and Steve McQueen and all this kind of stuff. And it was just like, I'm sitting here, I'm talking to a legend. like this guy, like, made some of the greatest movies of all time. And I'm just sitting here like at a party, like hanging with him. Like it was like a great Hollywood. Can I tell one more story about that
Absolutely.
party? Okay, so. John Landis, who was the EP on the executive producer on my movie I Hate Kids, right? But long before that, I went to this same party for Kevin McCarthy, right? And there's a lot of famous people there. George Hamilton was there. David Hedison was there. Red Buttons was there.
What the
right?
hell?
I know. It
Drew
was crazy.
Barrymore's
It was
walking around with
crazy.
wine.
Actually, it's funny you say that because no, she wasn't there. But Kevin looked at my wife Leanne and was just like, "You remind me of Drew Barrymore." He said that. But here's the funny thing is that so we're all there. We're having like cake and people are strewn up all over the place in this house, and the door opens. And Anthony Hopkins walks in,
Holy shit.
right? And it's almost like right out of a movie. It's like the wind. He had a scarf around him, and he had this mane of long white hair. And like he walked in, and the wind came with him, and it like blew his hair. Like it was like very cinematic. But it was just like everybody was just like, "Oh my God, it's fucking Anthony Hopkins," right? And apparently. Anthony Hopkins had just directed a movie and he had Kevin in his movie. And that's why he was coming to Kevin's birthday party, right? So now, of course, everybody wants to talk to Anthony Hopkins, right? And so I remember my wife Leanne and I were sitting on the stairs of this house and we're right there with John Landis. And I didn't know John at the time. Okay. I mean, I met him briefly or whatever, but we weren't friends or anything like that, like we are now. And my wife, I'm sorry laughing, but my wife was like being like kind of little like whiny or whatever, and she was just like, and she didn't know John Landis either, but he's standing right there, and she goes, "John, I want to meet Anthony Hopkins." And Landis goes, "You want to meet him? Come on." Grabs her by the hand and he starts pulling her like through the room, right? And I was just like, okay, I got to see what happens here, right? John Landis pulls her through this crowded party, comes up behind Anthony Hopkins, who has his back turned because he's talking to somebody, right? Landis pulls her right up and then taps him on the shoulder as hard as he can. Boom, 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 boom. And he runs away.
Oh my God.
Anthony Hopkins turns around, sees my wife standing there, who is just like all the color has drained out of her face, right? She's mortified. She's just like a total Jackie Gleason, like, right? And he just extends his hand. He goes, Anthony Hopkins, nice to meet you.
Aww.
Right? And at which point, of course, I like kind of squeeze in. I'm like, hello, I'm Frank. Nice to meet you. And we have this nice little conversation with Anthony Hopkins, right? After which he like for maybe like 3 or 4 minutes, right? And he's lovely. He's really is. He's just an absolutely lovely man. So, but then he turns around, he goes back to the conversation that we interrupted, right? You know? And Leanne just turns around and she just like goes, Landis! Right? Like moving through the room trying to find him so she can punch him in the fucking throat, right?
He is probably in the bathroom like,
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear that story.
Oh man. It was so amazing but makes a great story. So right?
Oh, yeah.
You have so many, and that's why we love having you. And we wanted to have you in the podcast because you are just a master of storytelling. It's fantastic. You're talking about sitting with of Ray Weiss, and he's a legend and all these things and all these amazing films. But you, to us, are a legend of low budget films. Damn it!
Yeah.
Yep. And look, I wouldn't be sitting here right now if I hadn't have made those movies. I wouldn't have made those movies if I hadn't beaten up John Fasano when he was in elementary school.
See,
So everything happens for a reason.
Yeah,
right?
bullying pays off.
Pays off.
No, it doesn't, kids.
No,
You want a job?
Don't
you
do
throw
that.
some dog shit at somebody.
Yeah.
Well, are there any?
Do it the Dietz way.
Oh. Well, I had one more thing.
Yeah.
Was to not make you name drop any more than you have tonight.
Oh, like I have a problem with that.
Hey, we're friends with everybody. Trust me.
You did write a movie starring Pamela Anderson.
I did.
Naked Souls.
I did. Yeah. That was the first movie that I wrote that got made. It was originally called The Soul Chamber. When I wrote it, I called it The Soul. And it's actually based on an H.G. Wells short story that's called something like The Case of Mr. Elversham. And I've just been writing about it in the book. And it's a body switching story. It's about this older gentleman who's very rich, and he tricks this young scientist into switching bodies with him and gives him basically says, here's all my money, here's all my stuff, here's my house. And then he switches bodies with him. So now he's a young man again with all of his stuff. Right. And I loved the idea of it because body switching had been done as comedies like a whole bunch of times. George Burns, Jennifer Garner did it, Freaky Friday, right? But no one had ever done what a terrifying situation that would be if you switch bodies with somebody as a horror movie, right? So I was really thrilled when they were casting it because David Warner was cast as the older guy, the older scientist guy, and I was a huge David Warner fan. The Omen, Time Bandits, Time After Time, Morgan. There's all these great movies that he was in.
Waxwork?
Waxwork, yes. Yeah. No, absolutely. I think he did Waxwork after Naked Souls. I'm not positive, but somewhere around the same time.
Undiscovered
Straw Dogs, which he doesn't even have a credit in.
Yeah, he's like a big part of that.
I wasn't even sure it was him, but he doesn't have a credit in the movie. He was fantastic, right? And Dean Stockwell, we cast as it's kind of a cameo, really, more than anything else. Brian Krause. From Sleepwalkers, it was a great cast, and I had written this part, Britt, the female lead, for somebody like Celia Ward, somebody who was sexy but kind of aloof and kind of cold a little bit, you know what I mean? Yeah. And then they gave me I got the call.
Oh my God.
And it was we have our female lead for Brit, and it's Pamela Anderson.
Best we could do is a lifeguard.
And
Tool time?
Tool time. Exactly.
Machi.
Right. And or just like, a Playboy playmate.
Yeah.
Right. And it was before barbed wire. In fact, we had to shoot her out so that she could then go right directly to barbed wire.
Nice.
At Universal. But I was just like, oh, boy, that's not what I pictured at all. And the director, Lyndon Chubbuck, he came to me and he said, look, here's the thing. We got our finishing money because Pamela's in this movie because she's a big overseas sale. Right. And that counts for a lot. And he said, and he said, I guarantee you she'll work hard to be in it. And his wife, Ivana Chubbuck, was a very famous acting coach in Hollywood. Like she coached like big stars, and Pamela was one of her clients, right? So basically, Lyndon said to me, "What I need you to do is, because the way you've written the character, that's not Pamela. Okay, so I want you to sit down with Pamela and get to know her so that you can then adjust the dialogue of the character in the movie to more fit her personality."
Yeah.
So I had to sit down with Pamela Anderson, right?
Much to your chagrin.
just spend an afternoon talking with her and getting to know her. And I'm going to tell you right now, she was lovely.
Good. I've heard that.
She was absolutely lovely. And I mean, she walked in and she was dressed in just like some gray sweats, right? And she had no makeup on. And the first thing that I noticed when she sat down was that she had freckles. And I was like, "You freckles?" Like, I didn't say that out loud, obviously, but
You're one of us.
But because
person.
normally she'd have all the, this, Joker makeup on, like the big red lips and all this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
right? And we sat there for a couple of hours, and she just told me about her lineage, like what she likes, that she was considered herself a white witch, which was interesting, right?
Yeah.
And just she was so sweet. And so I was able to then take that afternoon with her and transplant that into the character in Naked Souls, so that when she was going to play the character, it would come out easier for her. And listen, I'll tell you, she worked hard, man. She had Ivana, her acting coach, with her there every single day because, hey, shit, man, she's working with David Warner.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to look like crap.
Yeah, he will
right?
eat you alive.
Oh, yeah.
And by the way, David was also one of the nicest people I've ever worked with.
These are the stories I like to hear.
He was lovely. Like,
Rest in peace, baby.
I was worried. Yeah, I know. I was so worried that he would be a dick, like Robert Vaughn. But he was so good. I remember the first day I came to set, and he was sitting there in his chair, like they were like tweaking lights or whatever. And I walked up to him and I said, "Hi, David. I'm Frank Dietz. I'm the writer." And he was just like, "Oh my goodness, Frank, it's so nice to meet you. Oh my God, these things always start with the script, and I'm delighted. I'm delighted to meet you." And I had a photo. I had an 8x10 photo of him as evil from Time Bandits, and I said, "Would you mind signing this?" And he was he was so sweet. So he actually wrote to Frank, "Many thanks for the words. Sincerely, David Warner."
That's amazing.
Right?
That's awesome.
Right? And then I came back a few days later, and it was like lunchtime, and he was there with his wife at a table. He saw me, and he was like, Frank, come over. Come on. Come sit with us. This is my wife. Look, have a seat. And he was just, oh, my God, just awesome. Like he and Martin Short are the two people I think that of all I'd put Adam in there also, Adam West. But like those guys were just unbelievably nice and made me realize that like this industry isn't as horrible as as most people think it is because of people like this.
Yeah.
And I lucked out. I lucked out that I got to work with these people when I did. and also made me realize, gave me lessons of how to act with other people. Very quickly, let me tell you about Martin Short, right? I was only a fucking
Clifford is my favorite movie of all time.
Well, so do you know that's what I'm going to talk about?
I was hoping, but
this side of the room just blew up.
I worked on Clifford, right? And this is when I was really new in Hollywood, right? So I was a PA, and then I got bumped up to a stand-in, right, for G.D. Spradlin, who was in the movie, right? So I spent several days on the set of Clifford, and the thing that impressed me so much, I got to talk to Martin a lot. Actually, we had a mutual friend, Paul Michnick, who was the DP on both Black Roses and The Jitters, was a friend of Martin's. Marty, he calls himself Marty. So we had that connection, right? But here's the thing. This is the thing, and this is what so impressed me and so amazed me, was that when we broke for lunch, Charles Grodin, who was also nice, by the way, Mary Steenburgen, also very nice, those guys would go to their trailers for lunch, right? Martin Short would grab a tray, go up to the catering truck, get food from the catering truck, and then go and sit with all the extras.
Aww.
And he would just sit there and start talking to them, asking them about, who they were, what they were doing, their lives.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love that movie.
Was he wearing his little boy shorts?
He was. No, he was. Actually, it's so funny. The first day I worked on it, I was just an extra. I was in these these office building scenes, right? And I remember I was standing there in my suit with my suitcase, and there was a line of us that were waiting to go and do when the AD called, said now go, right? And I was standing there, and I turned around, and Martin Short was standing right there, dressed as a 12-year-old boy, right? And he just looked at me, and he just said, "Hello." I said, "Hello." I was like, "Nice to meet you." I'm seriously. This is the reason everybody in Hollywood loves Martin Short, is because that's who he is. He's real. He's a real person. He cares. He understands that everybody on a movie set is important, no matter who they are. If they're working, they're important, because all of those elements are what make a movie good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So,
oh, that's fantastic.
I just love Charles Grodin looking at him in that movie. And he's like, "Look at me. You can't even look at me. Look at me like a real boy." And he's just
giving these weird
I got Charles Grodin to tell me stories about working on King Kong, right? Because I was just dying to know, right? And Charles Grodin wouldn't be like, he was like, I want to be in King Kong, but I don't want to be the guy that kills King Kong. That's that's all I care about. All right. And they said "Oh yeah, that's great. Because you're not going to be the guy who kills King Kong." Oh, good. Because I don't want to be the guy who kills King Kong. Right. And then they call him back, and they're like, "Oh, hey, we got this great, up and coming actor. And we're going to give him this great part in the movie." And he's like, "That's fine. That's all right. As long as I'm not the guy who kills King Kong." Right?
That's a pretty good Charles Grodin, by the way.
Yeah.
And so he said that, what's his name got the hero part?
Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff Bridges.
Yeah.
And so that they ended up giving him the part of the oil guy, right? He said that it's several weeks later, he said he's standing on a beach in Hawaii, right? And they're filming the movie, and he just kind of goes to himself, "I'm the guy who kills King Kong."
We have to end it on this one. All right,
Yeah.
guys.
Don't be the guy who kills King Kong.
That's right.
That's a words for life there.
Oh, well, thank you for coming on the podcast. You are just like the stories that you, I know you even cut some of these short. Like, thank you so
I did.
much. But
I'll come back next time I'm in town.
Oh,
Yes,
please
do it again.
We got to have you back. But I mean, like he's like I meant to say like with when it came to like Ray Wise, like that's how we look at people like you. We love the films you do, the things that you do for the genre, and how you treat the fans is so friggin' important. We talk about it all the time on the podcast. We even have an episode called Convention Nightmares, and it's wonderful to meet you, become your friend, and know what a solid human being you are. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
I'm
I'm my pleasure. Always happy to be. I like you guys. You guys are great. Oh my God. But you also gave me free wine, so I'm not like that helps also. So
That's the trick.
Well, before we go, we got to do the metal sign, Black Roses style. Dan. Come on.
woo.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Like and subscribe if you can.
You found
Dave,
us.
you
Found
want
us
to
yes. Yes.
Dave,
I will.
get us
Where
out of
can
here.
we
All
be
right.
found?
You can be found where you're listening to us or watching us right now. YouTube, Anchor, FM, Breaker, Google Podcast, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Spotify,
Dave's
Apple
really
Music,
sleepy.
Castbox, Verbal, Facebook, OnlyFans.
We're on 43. We're in 43 countries, and check us out and find us.
MySpace.com.
MySpace.com.
Oh my God.
All right.
Bye,
Goodbye.
guys. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Gore Club.